Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson, and I'm honored to have first-time guest of the show, Raiden Kovacs. Raiden, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I should have also said you are a professional heavyweight MMA fighter because everybody loves heavyweights, and you are a really big. I'm gonna say from watching you fight, I thought you were 6'7", maybe 6'6", very big.
Six
Very
six.
6'6". Okay, not bad. My memory. I got to watch you fight Cody Gamble in front of me several years ago. It was in the beginning of your amateur career. You finished your amateur career 5-2, a great record, and then now you're a pro, and you're going to be, I believe, headlining or at least maybe co-headlining. I'm not sure if it's been announced as a headlining, but you're a
Yeah,
big fight. Is it a headline?
I believe it's either co-main. I don't know
Co-main.
that. I don't
Okay.
know if it's.
I was close. Okay, so we're gonna say you're the co-main event for 247 Fighting Championships 513 Fight Night, which is going to be their first foray into Cincinnati, Ohio, in just a couple weeks, September 9th. So let's jump into it. You're fighting Cameron Kinzing, who is 3-0. So obviously, he's off to a great start in his professional career. You have a great amateur career looking for your first professional win. Why say yes to this fight, and talk a little bit about this upcoming fight for 247 513 Fight Night.
I know for us, something we really liked about the matchup was how both Cameron and I's kind of fighting style was due to both of our height. Was kind of similar. We felt like he kind of fought like an earlier me. And that was kind of like a challenge because a lot of the guys I fought are usually shorter than me. So we felt like it was something where okay, we were prepared for this because we've dealt with strikers, we've dealt with kickboxers before. So in terms of his skill, we feel like adequately prepared for that.
Sure.
But the challenge excited us was actually the height, and it was kind of like, hey, this is somebody who's just as tall as you, and I would assume if not just as long as me, close to it.
Well, you and your coaches sound like you're following I think, the good method, but a lot of people don't, of going after people that have, skill and ability. You're not looking for somebody. He's 3-0. According to Tapology and sometimes their numbers, he's 6'6".
Yeah.
Looks like the way they measure the reach, you might have just a couple inches of reach. It's always kind of confusing. Plus, they're still using the boxing measurement for reach, and they're not quite measuring, although I think the UFC is now measuring leg length. So, because there's more weapons involved, but you guys are both at the very upper end of the 265 limit. I believe your last fight you came in at 263. What's it like being probably the tallest, biggest you can be as a heavyweight fighter, and how do you think your height being the same and your weight being very same as your opponent, how do you think that's going to play out? I mean, I think the fans are going to love watching it. You said you kind of are used to kickboxing big guys. Is this kind of a throw until somebody gets knocked out? Don't give away your game plan, but obviously I hope you
Right.
see an opportunity to take advantage of whatever you see. So if you and your coaches kind of looked at some weaknesses in your opponent, I'm assuming with a 3-0 record, there's some fights out there on him. I'm checking to see if he had amateur fights.
Yeah, I don't know how his amateur thing was. We kind of focused more on the professional
Of
side,
course, yeah,
obviously,
of
since
course.
in terms of what it's like being as tall as I am, it's both a double-edged sword, which any body in MMA is going to have. The reach obviously is great. Being able to, for example, like hang on people. That's something I think Cameron also does. Working like the clinch and stuff. That's also that's all great. But when guys get underneath you or they're throwing those overhands, it sucks and it's annoying because you're consistently like especially when I was an amateur, you couldn't like knee to the head. Or in like the training room, I can't tell you how many guys I know I could have thrown a knee. I could have just ended it. I could have just been lights out, but because these are my teammates, I'm like, oh shit, I can't do
Right,
that.
right. Obviously,
Um,
yes. Please do not do the TJ Dillashaw to Chris Holsworth and end his
right,
career because you are training partners. Absolutely, good point.
right. No, I don't want to because I do, but we can't practice. But my coach would yell at. Uh, but going into this one, for me specifically, I'm looking for the knockout. All my amateur, just about the vast majority of my amateur wins were through submission. So I feel like I've proven that aspect of my game. So I'm looking to do it on a new good, like a good opponent who is just my height. That way, any detractors can't say, well, the guy was, 5'10",
Right.
6 foot. You had a significant on him. If it was taller than him, he could have boxed you just the same. It was like fighting a little kid, and that's why you were able to, get the win. Um, so that was something that we really liked about this specific matchup.
Amazing.
Um,
Yeah.
I think I answered your.
No, yeah, you definitely did. You gave me a lot of details. I really appreciate it. And I was just checking out your opponent's record, and I think it's great when you guys are really what I would say is the imposing side. All heavyweights are big and strong, and of course, I remember you fighting Cody, the incredible Gamble, and he's I'd say right around 6 feet, kind of like we were talking about, super thick, strong guy. But obviously, the fighting style is different when they can get underneath you, and they there's different strengths and weaknesses. Very exciting. I think
Mm.
Jim Mooney, the head matchmaker for 247, and Hunter Homestad, the GM. I think this is a genius matching because you're not just heavyweights, you're almost, to borrow the colloquialism of Mike Goldberg, virtually identical as far as your
Yeah.
matchup. So the fact that you're saying you want to knock out, I think is super exciting. You've already mentioned knees. As a pro, you had one pro fight, didn't go your way. You didn't really
Yeah.
get far. You didn't get far into it. So I would assume you didn't really get a lot of opportunity to use some of your things. You mentioned knees. Are you also looking forward to head kicks and elbows, or is kind of the thing in your mind as a pro is that you'd love to throw knees? Because I'd say those are the big ones, right? Head kicks,
Right.
knees, and elbows.
I usually tell my mindset is whatever I can get, I'll take. Knee
Sure.
knockout, knee, elbow, head kicks, whatever it is. That's something we've always practiced. So it's not like I haven't gotten like to test it in, at the gym or anything like that. So what excites me is being able to go into it going, oh God, if I do this, I'm not going to get like, because for example, when I was an amateur, there were times where I'd be like, I'd see like an opportunity to throw a knee or elbow, and I could feel like the voice, like the dark voice inside me going like, "Do it, just do it right now." And I'd be like, "No, fuck, I can't do that. I'm gonna
Right.
get like kicked out." What's nice is I don't have not having to worry about that.
Sure.
That's what excites me going into this.
Well, and that flow state, getting in that flow state where you can see an opening and do it. There's, I've watched, obviously, as you know, as amateur, if you throw an illegal strike, the best you can hope for is a draw. The worst you can hope for is a DQ loss, because you throw a knee to somebody, there's no way they're continuing after that. So it's either going to be a
Yeah,
draw or even a DQ loss, and then what have you kind of gained from there? So makes sense that one of the advantages of being pro is that you can really look for those openings and just flow, flow when the opportunity is there. So that is really
yeah.
exciting. Now, I believe your Tapology said you might be from Maryland. What's the drive like to Cincinnati? Are you bringing fans, or are you going to encourage fans to get the pay per view on 247fighting.com? I really don't know the geography of Cincinnati compared to where you are.
Right. So you're correct. I am from Maryland. Although I have family in Strongsville, which is near Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh,
So I've driven up. Uh, I've driven there plenty of times. It's pretty much it's for the most part it's a straight line through like PA and Ohio. They're Passover states, so it's just you and a bunch of truckers driving for the majority of time. So, not to Cincinnati. I haven't been there specifically, so the majority of the way should be the same. As for bringing fans, I usually tell everyone just do pay-per-view,
Sure.
especially at like the local level, sports you are like local guys who are working, all my teammates, like for example, me, even as a professional athlete, uh, excluding MMA, I have three other jobs. So
Oh
there's
wow.
many people in my like all my teammates have very similar positions. So I'm always like, hey man, listen, just get the pay-per-view. Don't kill yourself. There's plenty of people. I've had people fly down to like flight to see me fight. They've flown to see me, and I always appreciate that. But I'm always like,
Sure.
please make this as easy as you can. Pay-per-view is made for a reason. Um, but yeah, we'll probably get there a couple of days early, and just get rocking. And I look forward to taking a long ride home with the win. So that's the only thing I care about.
I think that
Traveling.
makes perfect. I think that makes perfect sense. I'm always a big fan of the pay-per-view, and if people like it, they can even get the 247 Live subscription app, which gives them all the fights that 247's ever done. Pay-per-views for people that are watching this, pay-per-views still give you a percentage, so picking your name in the pay-per-view,
Right.
sign out, and it's a much more efficient. So for you, you mentioned obviously you're looking forward to the long drive home, being Victor, and it really will kind of catapult you because currently you're an 0-1 pro fighter. Beating a 3-0 fighter would obviously be a big thing. Besides getting the win, what do you see as uh, the test or the success part? Would it be what would it be besides the win? I know that's the most important. Is it figuring out your range? Is it figuring out?
Right.
I think you said getting the knockout. Like what do you want to see from yourself? And then obviously we'll say best skills to you and kind of can't wait to see you September 9th.
Uh, for obviously there's kind of the technical aspect of it, which is just how well do you deal with somebody who has the same range as you? Because any tall guy that can tell you that when you go with like somebody significantly shorter than you, it feels unfair. It feels like you're touching the guy, you're hitting him, boom, boom, and like I've had plenty of training partners significantly shorter than me just go, dude, there's just nothing I can do. I would just shoot you, is what they've told me. Um,
It's a great phrase.
Excluding
Great phrase from a friend.
right,
I just shoot you.
right, I just shoot you. Outside of that, it's really managing the time of the competition, because going from three
Mm.
threes to three fives is something that's a big change. And you, especially as a heavyweight, and especially if you're a heavyweight like me, like I call like me and like Cameron, like we're true heavyweights in the
Yeah,
sense that like dropping down to light heavyweight is not an option. I have
not
fought
happening.
guys.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why they do it. I admire their bravery for it, but I've gone with guys who are like 230, 240, and they got some meat on the bone. And I'm just looking at them going like, my guy, like, why are you not dropping down to light heavyweight?
Right.
That's their prerogative choice. But cardio at this weight class is always a worry. And I have spent significant time, especially with I have a trainer now. I've been working with him for over a year now at Find Your Grit as the company at Grant Taylor. A
Okay.
lot of our workout focus on is cardiovascular endurance and health, especially with the explosiveness and just being able to like last that long and to be able to perform at that high volume. Because somebody like me who we have goals of going to the UFC, we don't want to just be a fighter that wins. We want to be a fighter that excels and puts on a good show for the fans. You have to have a gas tank on you. So getting to like what I've been working on for the past year, and actually get to do like a stress test on it, is
Oh,
something I'm really like, look forward to. And if it's if it did go to a decision, or if it did go to the third round, if I'm sitting there going like, man, I could go a couple more rounds, like when Volk fought Islam, you know Volk did 5 5s, and you're looking at him going like, he looks like he could have gone another 5 rounds if he wanted to.
Right.
That's something that's really my goal, because if you can't be the best, you be the most conditioned.
I mean, that's a great phrase. You have a lot of great coaches in training. It's rare. I mean, this is zero offense to Derek, the Black Beast, Lewis, but I think it's been somewhat obvious at times that his cardio sometimes lacks. That's no offense to him. He's
Yeah,
an incredible fighter. But for
yeah,
you,
of course.
yeah, yeah. And I think he'd admit that. This is not, I would never make fun of the man. Obviously, he's a great fighter, very entertaining. But I think you and
Yeah,
probably your opponent, you have a lot of advantages, like you just said. If you can't be the best, or I guess you should say to beat the best, you outwork them, because then that is your way to become the best. So for somebody like you to have conditioning, to really want to show off your conditioning at 265, 6'6", you're at the upper end and can have conditioning. Obviously, only good things can happen when you condition. And for people that haven't been truly gassed, I always say it's kind of like trying to breathe through the tiniest straw you've ever seen in your life, right? You're just it's really bad when you're gassed. So obviously you can go into a 3-5 minute fight, 15 minutes fights, confident that you won't gas. Do you have sponsors or people you want to give shout outs to, whether it's coaches, training partners, gyms, sponsorships, as we really talk about the fact that a big part of a regional pro fighter is the support from, whether it's sponsorships or gyms and things like that. So let's get to that before we wrap up.
Yeah. Obviously, I always focus first on my team. The guys are in with me every day. So Rob McCraw, Jason Topaldos, Terry Bartholomew. Most of my training partners, we have, like Dave White, Keenan, everyone at Bower House who supports me. I'm very lucky. I have, especially as an amateur, I've been very blessed to have many sponsors, which you can always check out my banners and stuff like that. But just to kind of run through them off the top of my head, the biggest would be Find Your Grit, obviously my trainer, Il Forno's Pizzeria. We have Tasting Room, which is in Frederick. Happiness is Balance, Complete Interiors. That's 5 right there. We have, oh Christ, Neighborhood Veterinary Associates. We have Dillon Lightning Protection. We have the agency, real estate company. We have, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've so many. It's a good problem to have. I'm like, crap, am I remembering everybody? I think that's everyone off the top of my head. So and any fan, regardless of how casual you are, if you're somebody on Instagram who you're like, oh man, I see that guy and I like his post one time, like a year or something like that. That's something even I appreciate and like I value, because all listen, anything you can get, is always a help, no matter how small it is.
Yeah,
And
makes perfect sense. It's a big.
lastly, I want to say thank you to you for having me here, Luke.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. It's an honor to have you on the show. I got to watch you fight and win for 247 several years ago. It doesn't always work out for me to get everybody on, but it's really cool. Thanks for making time out. And for any sponsor you may have temporarily forgotten, you gave a shout out to your banner. So everybody on your banner, everybody on your fight shirt matters. I'm thrilled that you have the support. But like you said, the gym, the guys that you train with day in and day out, that you punch them, they punch you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're what allows you to get into the cage. And then, of course, the sponsors help that. So thanks so much for coming on. You've been listening to Luke Payson for MMA Fancast with Raiden, and I really appreciate it. It's going to be 247 Fighting Championships 513 Fight Night, September 9th, Cincinnati, Ohio. For those of you that are getting the pay-per-view, 247fighting.com. Make sure to give Raiden credit. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
You take care. Have a good one.
You too.